We're on a mission to find the greatest allotment site in Britain. We've travelled the length and breadth of the country to find Britain's greenest gardeners, tastiest produce and most inspiring community projects. And when our journey is complete, the most outstanding site will be named the Digging for Victory Champion. Welcome to Digging for Victory. Today we've travelled to Edinburgh to the Bridgend allotments. The gang here are digging deep in their bid to reach our grand finale and the chance to become Digging for Victory champions and win a prize worth £2,000. Of the 10,000 allotment sites in Britain, Bridgend in Edinburgh is just one of 9 that has been selected for the final stages of this competition. Each of the chosen sites impressed a team of experts with their gardening excellence and superb community relations. But only one site can become Digging for Victory champions. Across the series, I shall be visiting each of the 9 sites to choose our winner, and helping me with this difficult task is allotment expert Hannah Genders. 20 years ago, she was the first woman to take on an allotment plot at her local site in Birmingham. Since then, her passion for gardening has blossomed into a garden design business and 2 medals at the Chelsea Flower Show. We've decided to do our judging in the spring. This is a vital time of year for allotments as planting begins. Using a strict set of criteria, Hannah and I will be awarding points in 4 categories: produce, eco-friendliness, community relations and visual impact. Well, first impressions, Hannah. It's a bit fresher up here, isn't it?
It's definitely fresher, but what an interesting site. It's not like any of the others we've been to, because all the sheds match. It's got a feeling of being really new.
Well, it's actually only a year old, isn't it, this site? So it's a very new site. You can see that it's been well planned. It's obviously an architect's been involved because obviously demonstration gardens, school area.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously been thought about, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But also, because it's so new, it'd be really interesting to find out if they're doing everything sustainably, if they're doing organic stuff, you know, because they can make all these decisions early on.
Yep.
What are they doing? Is it working? Are they doing it well?
In today's programme, Hannah and I will be casting our judgely eyes over the whole of Scotland's newest allotment site, learning the benefits of the site's amazing community projects, and getting some top tips from Bridgend's pioneer of heritage varieties. But first, Hannah and I catch up with Andrew Glass and his family. As Andrew is the site's first ever chairman, he had the unenviable task of transforming an unused field into an allotment site.
So, Andrew, tell me, how did they actually leave the site? Was there any clearance done beforehand for you?
I mean, originally it'd been the arable fields, and then grazed, and then it'd just been let go for a few years. So they came and ploughed it over and skimmed some of the turf off. But unfortunately, you dug a couple of forks down and you'd come to the turf that they dug in. So there's still a lot more digging to do.
So they just turned it, basically. So all this cooch grass I can see, that's just come back through, basically, all the dock and all this sort of thing.
Yes.
So there's quite a major battle. Obviously, it's going to be a few years before that's got on top of. And because also you're organic, aren't you?
Yes, so we can't use any chemicals to suppress the weeds, so we just have to dig.
One thing I noticed here, you've got a lot of community sites, obviously like the place for the school, you've got this lovely, massive, great playground here. Is that really working well? Is a big community aspect to this?
It is, yes, and there is a community certainly coming together much more strongly now.
Ross, do you like this angle of it? Do you like coming up here, having a barbecue, a beer, the whole community thing?
Yeah, it's fantastic, yeah, just let the kids all entertain themselves.
That's good, because obviously there's lots of parents around, the kids can do their own thing and everyone's keeping an eye, yeah?
And because of the layout, people tend to pass your plot when they're going to their plots.
Right.
So we do get to know each other.
So you sort of say hello to each other, yeah.
No one gets stuck up in a corner too much, so it's nice.
Good stuff. I'll tell you one thing, I lived in Edinburgh for 3 years. One thing I know about this city is there's a little touch on the cold side, and it's very windy. So does that affect the produce you grow here?
The temperature, well, you just adapt to that. The growing season starts a little bit later, though not this year. And the main problem on this site is the wind, because we're very exposed from the westerly winds, which come straight off the Pentland Hills there.
Yeah.
So that causes a lot of damage. We lost a couple of greenhouses over the winter, and one of the sheds was blown over.
So actually, a whole building's taking off there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, Bridgend may be new, but it certainly deserves its place in this competition. The selection process began last winter as applications flooded in from sites around the country. Representatives from the National Allotments and Gardens Trust and the National Society of Allotment and Leisure Gardeners were called in to help, and using their expertise, they nominated the 9 strongest sites. But now it's down to Hannah and me. We must visit each of the nominated sites and score them in 4 main categories: produce, eco-friendliness, community relations, and visual impact. And when judging is complete, the 3 highest rated sites will go forward to our series finale. Each of our nominated sites has received a selection of gardening goodies worth £500 just for reaching this stage of the competition. But the Digging for Victory champions will win a prize of £2,000 worth of vouchers for their site. Starting an allotment from scratch can feel a bit like climbing a mountain. And for the tenants here at Bridgend, even getting a site was a bit of an uphill struggle. Now, after years of waiting, they were so keen to get going that they became one of our nominated sites after just 9 months. Back in February, we found out how they were doing.
It's been a lot of hard work being the chairman of the association, but it has been very rewarding. It is strange to think that a year ago there was no site here and I wasn't chairman of anything, but it has been fun and we're getting a lot done.
One of their achievements is an unusual one for an allotment site, although it could be worth a few extra points.
Well, this is a composting toilet. It's been designed into the site from the very beginning. A lot of people are quite intimidated by a composting toilet, but it's actually incredibly simple to use. You just simply, do your business and then throw a handful of sawdust in, which we keep several large sacks of, and throw that into the bowl. And then it's got a handle, which you just turn it to mix it, and that's it. The only maintenance it needs is every few weeks it needs to be emptied. It's got a waste tray underneath which collects the solid waste, and it's got a overflow for any liquid waste which is just drained into the ground. Human waste, if you've got a very large compost heap, you can put it into the centre of it, but it does need to be composted for a couple of years before it can be put onto food crops. So what we do is we just dig big holes and put it in the bottom of them and then cover it up again, and the worms do the rest of the business. Of course, the only problem you get, as with any community like this, is who's going to empty it.
And today, Andrew, it's you.
It's not too bad. It doesn't smell as bad as it looks. And it does have the advantage in the winter that the composting actually seems to warm up the room a little bit, which is great.
Benefiting from the site's amenities are novice gardeners from the local community. Professional gardener Anne Jepson runs a health project supported by the NHS to teach people going through personal difficulties basic gardening skills.
Well, we want the health project to be a place where people make their own space really, and learn about gardening, get the skills and the confidence to go away and make their own gardens. Some people come through a very sort of conventional NHS route. Some people just present themselves at the project. They hear about us. We've made an effort to make ourselves as present as possible in the community, and made a point that we're open to all, that we don't, we're not about categorising people, that we just want everyone to come who's interested in learning about growing food. We ran a series of workshops last year for primary schools, so sort of age 4 to 11, and it was surprising how little they knew. Like, they expressed surprise when they saw a strawberry growing on the ground, and their feelings about eating the food directly from the plants was sort of, oh, but it's not clean, it's dirty. But we were trying to encourage them, no, this is fine, it's sort of grown organically, there's nothing nasty on it. Growing things does connect with a sort of very basic human need about provision, about being grounded, about connection with the world around you. It's a very human activity.
So it's all about confidence building then, Anne, yeah?
Confidence and skills as well, through the skills that they're picking up when they come here, then they sort of see, oh, I can achieve.
So I think it's with people who are a bit vulnerable and insecure, and they're always relying on other people. When they come to grow plants, the plants are reliant on them, and you get that as a benefit to them, I think. Yeah.
And the simplicity.
Yeah.
And the simplicity of gardening as well. If somebody's had no sense of success in their lives, and
they grow some
seeds, and they'll come up.
So you've got methods of doing this here. I see you've got these sort of small raised beds here. What kind of stuff are you growing in here?
There's going to be all sorts of mainly salad crops, because that's what works well on this. This is the square foot method of gardening, which I believe comes over from America.
Yeah.
And we've decided to trial it here, basically because I think it's something you could probably take back and put into a smaller garden.
Right.
And also to get over the idea of gluts, instead of sowing a huge packet of seed or a whole row.
Right, so you're being much
sow a
more
little
specific.
bit and more often.
Sure.
So for a little kid just to sow a few seeds, it's great.
Yeah, it's very,
So
it's a good method,
yeah.
yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
good, isn't it? You were telling us though last year you put courgettes in and they just completely...
Yeah, they turn into courgette
rampant.
beds.
Yeah.
They are a bit of Dave the Triffids,
Not-
aren't they, courgettes, really? Yeah.
Not suitable for courgettes, yeah.
So having heard about the very impressive organic principles and health project, it's time Hannah and I found out if there are any chinks in Bridgend's armour.
There's a few plots on this site, aren't there, Chris, that perhaps aren't cleared yet. They've had quite a tough job. The whole site is organic and they want to clear weeds. And look at this, underneath our feet, it's all grass, dockweed, everything.
A lot of cooch in there. I mean, really, this is a big, big job.
This is a challenge, isn't it? If you want to do it organically, you can't spray.
Yeah, no chemicals allowed, yeah.
No. So you can cut the light out with carpet, can't you?
Yep.
Black plastic. And the other thing, of course, you could use is a flamethrower, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's quite a
You
good
could burn
one.
the top off.
Yep.
And then just start cultivating it underneath.
That
really.
is actually really, really good fun, actually, yeah.
And then as a contrast to this, the plot that we're looking at next door is very much more cultivated, isn't
Well,
it?
this is, I think, whoever's done this has sweated on that. I think there's some double digging gone on there.
I think
really
there
do.
probably is,
I think there's
yeah.
some double digging. I think one thing about this site as well is it's definitely the community feeling to it. It's a big part of them, you know. I think they're kind of very friendly.
And loads of kids coming onto site. We've seen this afternoon happening more and more.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a lot of young families, and it just shows you how a few years ago it'd probably been the old man up here with his fork, and now because it's got a bit more publicity and people are interested in organics, you've got a lot of young families about, and that's good to see, isn't it?
And it feels a bit like this site is how the future could be, isn't it, of allotments.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way. This is going to be the future of allotmenteering, eh?
Definitely, yeah.
But there's plenty more to see, and Hannah and I have to decide if Bridgend Allotments will make it through to the Digging for Victory grand finale. Welcome back to Digging for Victory, where our search for Britain's best allotment has brought us to the Bridgend plots in Edinburgh. Now, my fellow judge Hannah has been catching up with plot holder Stain, who, although new to gardening, is showing some real Dutch courage.
So, Stain, you moved here from Holland 4 years ago.
That's right.
What do you think of British allotments and how do they differ?
Well, certainly the biggest difference for this site is, it's really spectacular. And in the Netherlands, they would usually be sort of squeezed next to a railway or something. I mean, just look at the view.
It's
A site like
stunning,
this,
isn't it?
that's really, really good. And also the size of the plot, I think, is usually a lot smaller in the Netherlands. I mean, space comes at a bit more of a premium, if you like.
Your broccoli looks really healthy, doesn't it? Tell me about this.
Well, we put this in last year.
Yeah.
And the idea was to actually, to have the crop last year as well.
Yeah.
So, but we put it in too late during the year, and I almost dug it up because I thought it was too late. And my wife said, leave it in and maybe it'll start sprouting next year.
Yeah.
And it did. It's brilliant.
You've actually got some really quite good soil here. If we have a look at some of it, it's very dark and quite sort of friable, so it breaks up quite easily. The only thing I would do is I would always be feeding it, so maybe putting a mulch in and then digging that in so it's got plenty of good nutrients in there. Whenever you can, cover the whole of the soil with a really good thick layer of either compost or well-rotted manure.
Actually, just on top.
Yeah, just on top, literally an inch or so. And then as you start to dig things in, you'll be incorporating that. And the only vegetables that wouldn't like a fresh manure are things like parsnips and carrots because they'll tend to fork. But there's so many other veggies that really like it, so you want to start getting that goodness into the soil.
For Stain, the climate here means he can grow produce which is similar to back home. But if you're from further afield, you might have bigger ambitions for what can be grown. Stacey and John are plot neighbours and good friends. Fortunately for Stacey, who's originally from Wisconsin in America, local John has been on hand to advise her about what to plant. It's been a steep learning curve and she has had to acclimatise her expectations.
It's quite nice having John as a neighbour, plot neighbour, because I didn't have the experience of what a Scottish summer was going to be like. So chatting to him is quite good because I get a better frame of reference for what I can expect from the years.
Despite having sold fruit and veg for over 30 years, John was a little surprised to see what was growing on his neighbour's plot.
Stacey, being American, they seem to love their, as they call them, squashes, which is pumpkins and other exotic-looking fruits.
I planted a few chilies, sweet corn, and I grew pumpkins as well.
Some of them were successful and some of them weren't. Stacey had some tomatoes growing outside, but Scotland, unlike Wisconsin's, tomatoes don't grow very well outside.
Planted some seedlings just in one of the plots, and I think the summers here are just a bit too cool and a bit too wet for that sort of maybe nonchalant attitude. And tomato plants themselves did quite well, and I had quite a lot of fruit start, but none of it ripened. So at the end of the summer, I was stuck with buckets and buckets of green tomatoes.
Surprisingly, many types of fruit prosper in the Scottish climate, and they're on the planting list for another new plot holder. Harriet intended to join an allotment on retirement, but had to wait 4 years for her plot. She is making up for lost time and is hoping her apple trees will flourish on this site.
This one is Galloway Pippin, which is a very ancient Scottish variety. It was grown in Wigtonshire probably for centuries. The first mention I've read about was in 1871. This one is early Victoria, which is also called Emneth early. It was bred in Wisbech in Cambridgeshire in 1899. It is an extremely sweet apple. You could really use it as an eating apple as well as a cooking apple. And when you cook it, you don't need to add sugar. It has so much natural sweetness of its own.
Today, Harriet is planting her latest apple variety, an Arthur Turner.
Yes, it looks as if there are a couple of flower buds down here, and I'll let the blossom come because it's pretty to see, but I won't let it set apples, because if it tries to produce apples its first year in its permanent home, that will impede growing roots, and unless it has a really good root system, it won't be able to stand up to a dry summer or a lot of wind. I'm growing traditional varieties, partly, I suppose, because I'm a fairly traditional person, but also because I think it's good to try and keep alive and use historic varieties, and the more people that do it, the more they are likely to survive, and that helps the general gene pool of plants. Anyway, it's nice to be different.
Well, there won't be any apples just yet, but Harriet has knocked up a treat using some of last year's soft fruits. Well, we're going to spoil it here again, aren't we, Hannah?
Yeah, this looks fantastic. Tell us about where you got the recipe from.
This is actually an Austrian recipe, and it's an almond pastry base, and then the red currants on top, and then a soft meringue topping.
So this is one of the red currant bushes you planted?
Yes, the berries that came last year I put in the freezer, and that's what's in your cake.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And look, it's got loads of flower on it
It
again
has.
this year, hasn't it?
Yes, I just hope there'll be enough bees, because the bees aren't used to coming here.
And what was really interesting as well, I know you've been planting some heritage varieties of apples. I mean, often they went out of favour, really, because maybe they didn't all crop together or there was something about them, but the taste is usually very, very good,
Taste is good, and from the point of view of an organic allotment, they've survived, you know, for centuries. And therefore, when people didn't have the chemicals that are available now, so if you grow them, then you shouldn't have as much trouble with some of as you would with maybe some of the modern varieties.
So if you were going to plant something like this, an apple tree, a heritage variety, again, would you go through the process of making sure it had good base dress feed, top dress feed? And what about pruning? That's probably a bit important, isn't it, when you're
Yes,
growing
it
apples?
is. I certainly plant them in a good dose of manure, and mixed with a bit of potting compost, really for moisture retention, because as you can see, this site is drained because it's on a slope. Yeah. And as I say, you haven't the time and the energy to be watering things every 2 minutes. So particularly if we're going to get a cycle of drier summers, you need to start it off well.
Well, I have to say, if it tastes this good, you're absolutely on the right track.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And I think also what's really good is, you know, this whole thing about planting regional crops and heritage crops, I think you're flying the flag for that, so really well done, yeah?
Yeah.
If you're tempted to take on a plot or grow your own veg, you'll be glad to know that in the UK there are nearly 500,000 allotment plots. The majority are owned by the local council, who are required by law to provide land if there are enough requests, and interest is high. The current trend for organic and locally grown produce means that allotmenting is making a major comeback. Rent is generally around 25 quid a year, which makes allotment gardening a lot cheaper than going to the supermarket. Well, back at Bridgend in Edinburgh, our day of judging is almost at an end. So Hannah and I must now compare notes and score the site in each of our 4 main categories: produce, eco-friendliness, community relations and visual impact. So produce. Well, I think Our Lady Harriet scores big marks with her heritage work, don't you?
She does. I like the idea of calling her Lady Harriet.
I think she deserves that title.
It suits her.
I think it warrants it.
Definitely, but also crop rotation, because the whole site is organic and crop rotation is so much an important part of that. Everybody's doing crop rotation, aren't they? Even the newcomers are being encouraged to get into that. And then we move on to community relations. Now they are going to score high on this because they're doing so much, and it feels very cohesive, doesn't it, between the people running the site and the plot holders themselves. There's no boundary there, they're all mucking in.
I think, there's no real big Charlie Big Potatoes here, is there? They seem very family orientated, and obviously the work Amy and Anna are doing is incredible, you know, with the health projects.
And actually, if you look in the toilet, there's all the names of the people who are prepared to clean up. And I think if you do that, that's good community stuff.
Yeah, that's taking recycling to the ultimate, isn't it, really? Yeah. I'm afraid we can't reveal the score for Bridgend in Edinburgh or our 3 Digging for Victory finalists until we've visited each of the 9 nominated sites. And I have to say, for a site that's only 9 months old, it's quite incredible, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. You're doing so much with all the community stuff and the heritage stuff. It's great, isn't it?
I think so. The community thing is really strong here. I can tell you look like a bit of a big family, and I know that's probably important to you.
We feel this is a sort of plot of the future, don't we?
I think you're pioneerial in your approach, in that way. But we can't tell you any scores now, because obviously there's other sites involved and stuff, but very well done, and all the best for the future, yeah?
Thank you.
So, will Bridgend make it through to the final 3, or will they be pipped at the post by another nominated site? To find out, keep watching Digging for Victory.